In today's video, I'll talk about the guiding principles and then I'll talk about the phases 1, 2, 3. For phase 2, I will talk about how my CPF strategy will tie in with the rest of my portfolio planning. And then I'll talk about what's next in the upcoming video. And then I'll briefly mention about my Telegram community. Now, without further ado, let me go straight to the content itself. Before I talk about money, I need to talk about something more important. Energy, time, and money in that order. I find it partly because I hate work, but also because I value where my energy goes, who I spend time with, and how money supports that. Money is a tool, time is finite, and energy will decline. So this entire plan exists to make sure all those three are aligned, not just for me, but eventually for my spouse and my daughter. So people think that FIRE is about money. For me, it's not. My version of FIRE is about having three things at the same time. Energy comprises of physical and mental capacity. Time, control over how I spend my days. Money, having enough capital so that neither energy nor time is compromised. So the saying goes, when you have money but no energy, you can't enjoy it. When you have time but no money, you feel anxious. When you have energy but no time, life passes you by. So my FIRE target is not a number alone, but it's going to be an overlap of energy, money, and time. I've done a spreadsheet calculator in the previous video, and we'll try to put in the description. So there are many assumptions that I use, such as when long-term care will kick in, at what age, and how much will it cost. But I try to be as conservative as possible with my calculations. The spreadsheet itself is not vetted by any financial experts, so please use with care. The important thing is to recognize that I'm not trying to win over the internet, but I'm trying to win over the next 40 years, calmly and systematic with a plan. So I don't plan to use one strategy forever. I split my plan into 3 phases based on age, biology, and responsibility. So why 3 phases? So most people make one big mistake where they assume that the strategy that got them here will get them there. It probably won't. At 40 years old, your risks are different from 55. At 55, your responsibilities are very different from 65. And when you have a child, the downside matters a lot more than the upside. So I split my wealth plan into 3 phases, each with one different job. So risk capacity will change with age, liquidity will change with family needs, and what money is for changes over time. So trying to run one strategy from 40 years old to 70 years old is how people either take too much risk too late or become too conservative too early. So my framework is roughly phase 1, optionality phase, which is from age 40 to 47, phase 2, compounding phase, age 48 to 55, phase 3, income and security phase, age 55 onwards. So let me try to walk you through with real numbers. Phase 1 is the optionality phase, which is from age 40 to 47. So what this phase is about, and this is the phase I'm currently in right now. So at 40 years old, my biggest asset is not just money, it's optionality. My daughter is still very young at 2 years old, and life can still change very rapidly. So liquidity and flexibility will matter more than optimization. What I can expect in this age range is that volatility is acceptable, some mistakes can be reversible and survivable, and I still have energy to recover. Capital loss will hurt, but it doesn't end the game. So how I'll invest here, I will put 80-90% in high conviction stocks, 10-20% in cash or short bonds. I know that I'm probably not a great stock picker, but I enjoy the research process, and enjoyment matters because it keeps me disciplined. So the key to me is that stock picking here is a return enhancer and not a dependency. Based on my model that I've done previously, my portfolio will roughly grow from 2.9 million at 40 years old to 4.1 million by 47. So adjusted for inflation, that's roughly about $3.5 million in today's dollar. And if I were to invest fully for 3% dividend, that will yield about 8.7k monthly. So at this stage, my job is really not to grow generation wealth for my daughter. My job is really not to blow up, because the worst inheritance is a stressed parent who make one bad bet. And it's very important to always remember that if we are buying foreign single stocks, we are subjected to estate tax, meaning to say that I might suffer 40% haircut loss from my portfolio. Phase 2 for me is the compounding phase, and that's age 48 to 55. So why this phase exists is because in my late 40s and early 50s, something shift. My energy will still be there, but my margin for error will shrink. My daughter will also be in school, and my lifestyle will become stickier. Stability starts to matter more than excitement. And what I expect in this age range is that there'll be fewer big decisions, less tolerance for drawdowns, more value in borrowing consistency, and then behavioral mistakes become more costly. And based on the numbers, by age 55, the same model will project my portfolio at about $6.3 million nominal. In today's dollars, that's about $4.5 million. And in terms of investing, I will probably put 60% into index funds, 20% into high conviction stocks, 20% into low risk bonds and cash. And this is the point where I stop trying to become clever. And putting into index funds will help me reduce ego, regrets, and decision fatigue. At 55 years old, I will want my CPF to be at or about the full retirement sum, because then it will give me the SGD denominated income floor later. And what this phase means for my daughter is that at this point, I'm not just funding for my future. I'm buying peace of mind so that I'm going to be present and not anxious during her formative years. Okay, so let's talk about how CPF actually ties in with my portfolio planning. CPF rules will change, so all numbers are planning estimates and not promises, but this is the framework that I plan to use. So let's start with the assumptions, because everything else will be on this. Special account and retirement account for CPF earns about 4% risk-free in Singapore dollars. There's an extra 1% on the first $60,000, but for conservatism, I'll ignore it entirely in my planning. Next, retirement sum expressed in today's dollar. Basic retirement sum is about 102k, full retirement sum is 204k, enhanced retirement sum is about 306k, and these numbers will rise over time. But historically, CPF interest tend to offset much of the increase over long periods, which is why I'm comfortable planning in today's dollar. Now, the big picture. My CPF strategy starts with who I am today. Right now, I already have quite a high net worth, liquidity outside CPF, so there's no need to overload money early in life. So for me, the conclusion is clear that CPF is not for maximizing net worth, but my CPF is for maximizing certainty, longevity, and long-term SGD income. So that kind of framing will determine how I plan my portfolio. And then there are 3 CPF policies that I've somewhat decided upon. I'll show all 3, and then the choice will be a very conscious one and not accidental. The first policy I consider, I call it Policy A, FRS just in time. It is probably the most balanced and best fit for me. So the goal here for me is simple: to maximize flexibility and still lock in a strong CPF life income and avoid early overcommitment. So under this policy, I only top up CPF between age 50 and 55, and there's no early 40s aggressive action. The reason is because there's some compounding already happening in my CPF, and liquidity matters more when my daughter is young, and because I can still benefit from CPF interest even if I were to act later. So how much to top up is actually quite specific, because I want my CPF retirement account to reach FRS by age 55. I will assume my existing CPF to probably grow naturally. So based on that, the estimated top up required is around 200k to 250k. So the deposit can be a lump sum or staggered one. The structure probably matters more than the exact timing. And then at age 65, this will translate to a CPF life payout of around $1,600 to $2,000 per month in today's dollar. So CPF becomes a longevity insurance, and my investment portfolio will remain dominant. So this is probably a balanced, intentional plan which is not too overly optimized. So policy B is what I term the ERS maximizer. So I can have maximum CPF income, but I will suffer a loss in liquidity. So this kind of policy is for those who want maximum guaranteed income. And the goal here is to maximize lifetime CPF income, fully hedge longevity risk, and accept earlier lockup of capital. So the top up will typically start earlier, from age 45 to 55, because the earlier contribution will mean more compounding inside the CPF. The target here is to reach the enhanced retirement sum, which is around 306k in today's dollar. In practice, the required CPF capital is roughly going to be 300k to 350k, depending on the existing balance. So probably one could top up 40,000 per year from age 45 to 54. And the result at age 65 will be that CPF life payout will rise to around 3K to 3.5K per month. And portfolio drawdown pressure is going to be lower. But the trade-off is that you lock in money earlier, and then for me, there will be less flexibility for daughter-related needs or life changes. So it remains a very valid strategy, but it's probably not the preferred strategy for me. The third policy I consider is policy C, BRS plus property. So that will give maximum liquidity. So third policy prioritizes optionality above all else. And the goal is to maximize withdrawable CPF at age 55 with minimal lockup and highest flexibility. So the topping up is probably minimal or none. So I ensure that I reach BRS only, potentially using a property pledge if applicable. The estimated top up is probably $0 to maybe 100K at most, depending on my property valuation. So the result will be that the CPF life payout is around $800 to $1,000 per month. So I'll rely almost entirely on my portfolio for income. And the risk here is higher exposure to longevity risk and healthcare inflation. So this strategy will work if my portfolio and discipline are exceptional. So all in all, which policy will fit my life stage? Looking at the facts, my daughter is about 2 years old now. I'm already considered financially independent, and liquidity is very important to me. But in time to come, later in life, I'll probably want SGD income. And I put my risk tolerance to about moderate. So given all that, I'll think that the best fit is policy A, which is the FRS just in time. Phase 3 is the income and security phase. That's going to be age 55 to 65 plus and beyond. So at 55 years old and beyond, the goal changes completely. I'm no longer trying to win. I'm trying very hard not to lose. Because when you're responsible for someone else, the downside matters more than the upside. So by age 65, the model shows around $11 million nominal. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $6.4 million in today's money. So it's not really about luxury, but about durability. So at a very conservative 3% yield, that's around 27K per month before CPF Life. And CPF Life probably then become the safety net, but not the main act. So how I'll invest here is that I'll probably put money into SGD-based income assets, bonds, dividend ETF, cash buffers with minimal currency risk and low volatility. And for my daughter, this is where wealth preservation matters most. So I'm not trying to hand her the money, but I'm trying to hand her the stability, optionality, and a parent who doesn't financially depend on her. So here, I have put up a summary of my different phases. Phase 1 from age 40 to 47, Phase 2 from age 48 to 55, Phase 3 from 55 to 65. So the key idea is that as I move through the different phases, my investment strategy or my portfolio strategy will become more and more conservative, and I'm looking more for less volatility and more fixed income. So I've also put up how my CPF is going to be integrated with my portfolio, even though it might probably be a small portion of it. So phase 1, I will focus on optionality, where I don't really do CPF top-ups. Phase 2, I will have structured top-ups, and I will target FRS exactly to the required amount. Phase 3, my CPF life will become like a floor income for me. So at this point of time, the portfolio is to sustain my lifestyle and not be a burden to my daughter. So here's a little shout out for my Telegram community. So thankfully, my videos serve as a conduit for like-minded people to join my community itself. This community is meant for people who are fired, who have fired, planning to fire, or aiming for financial independence. There's no advertisement, there's no sponsorship, there's no causes, anything in sight. As far as possible, I'll try to keep away bots, bot-like people, and retain the genuine conversations, especially those without agendas. I myself have turned out interviews, mini sponsors to keep the channel as real as possible. If you find yourself aligning with my value system, maybe do consider joining the Telegram community. In the next video, if I have time, I'll probably do a quick review of my current financial situation. If you like today's video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.